Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Compassion and Courage, Conversations in Healthcare. I'm your host, Marcus Engel, and this is the podcast where I teach compassionate communication, provide perspective, and inspire resilience. And this week we are in celebration mode because it is NPD week. Now, what is NPD week? Nursing Professional Development Week. So if you are a nurse, and you are in the world of education and professional development, we want to tip our hat to you. And to help celebrate this special week, I brought in not one, but two nursing professionals, nursing professional development professionals, Naomi Fox and Stephanie Zidek. And I want to give Naomi and Stephanie, would you guys mind taking just a minute to introduce yourselves? And I know you both have a lot of cool letters behind your name. Do you mind sharing those and what your roles are in this world of NPD?
Absolutely. So I'll go first. I'm Naomi Fox, MSN, Master's in Education, RN, registered nurse for 16 years. NPDBC means I'm certified in nursing professional development, and CCRN, I'm certified as a critical care nurse. So my clinical experience is in critical care. And I am the Director of Education for ANPD, which is the Association for Nursing Professional Development.
Thanks, Naomi. I'm Stephanie Zidek, so thanks for having us both here, and happy NPD week. And I'm also master's prepared, hopefully very soon, PhD prepared in the next few months if all goes well. So think good thoughts as I
crossing our fingers for you.
And also am a nurse as well as specialty certified in NPD practice and a few other things, and have the opportunity to serve on the board of directors for ANPD. So work very closely with Naomi, and her and I also have the opportunity to co-host our own NPD podcast together, which has been really exciting.
And let's go ahead and share that podcast with everyone, because if you're in professional development, nursing professional development, you need to know about this podcast. Can you share that? And we'll also share a link to it in the show notes.
Sure. Thank you so much for that great hype. We have the opportunity to co-host a podcast through ANPD. It's called NPD Forecast, and we always have new episodes, generally every month or so. So be on the lookout, and we're excited to be spotlighting NPD practice in all different types of sectors and industries, and how we can spotlight what's happening within patient care.
And this is special because it seems like we're going to be using the information from our podcast today, not only for Compassion and Courage, but also for NPD Forecast. And I think that's going to help us reach some bigger audiences. And I'm excited to be teaming with you on that.
Likewise. It's a great cross collaboration.
So I feel like I ought to share with people how I kind of came to ANPD earlier this year. And it was a super special time for me because I had just gotten my brand new CNI dog, James. I had just gotten off of the plane in Atlanta, and I had only had him for about 2 weeks. And I took the stage at ANPD at the big Aspire convention in Atlanta. How many nurses did we have there?
I want to say about 1,000.
Close to 1,000?
Yeah.
About 1,000 nurses in the audience. James did such a good job, and I thought that the narrative nursing keynote that I delivered, because I'm so used to doing that in a workshop form and small groups, but we did it with 1,000 nurses, and I felt like it still had some resonance with the story sharing and story listening, and just the authenticity that was bred during that time. So I want to thank you all for being part of that event, and also helping me get there, and to have James have his trial by fire, his first time on stage in front of a bunch of nurses.
Absolutely. It was a wonderful moment for us as well. And I think I shared with you something that stood out predominantly was the fact that our members were standing up and lining up to the mics to share with you their personal experiences. You know, what you were talking about really resonated with them on a personal and individual level. And I love James, also same name as my husband, so I have a soft spot for him automatically. But he was such a good boy, you know. So thank you so much for that experience.
Sure, and it was super special for me. That's a talk that I will never forget because of that, because of his being his first time. I was nervous going into it. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous taking him on stage for the first time in front of 1,000 people. But you all just made such a welcoming audience, and just a really special time in life. So back to the idea at hand here with nursing professional development. For people who are not clinical like me, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what nursing professional development folks do, and how it benefits the greater world, and then also what your roles specifically are in the world of nursing professional development?
Sure, I can get us started. This is Stephanie. So, NPD practitioners, or nursing professional development practitioners, they're nurses, but they really specialize and focus in providing education and facilitating professional development for nurses, but really all types of healthcare professionals and clinicians. And we can work in a variety of settings, so it's not just limited to the hospital, although that's a very common setting. But you could have NPD practitioners in clinics, academic settings like schools and universities, and even government agencies, and certainly well beyond that too. But at the end of the day, it's really what we're doing is we're trying to provide knowledge, skills, and abilities so the folks rendering patient care can do that in a very safe and effective manner. Does that help kind of paint the picture of what we do?
That helps. That helps me a lot. That helps me a lot. Thank you. And I know this just from working in hospitals, but the general public may not know that nursing, like many other professions, you have to get a certain amount of contact hours every year, and these are the folks who are helping the nurses line up that education to get those contact hours. That's one of the hats that they wear oftentimes, correct?
Oh, definitely. And anytime there's any change within healthcare, big change, COVID-19, when that happened in 2020, it was really at the backs of our NPD practitioners that helped to make sure the nurses and all clinicians were practicing really appropriately, guided by government standards. But anytime there's new practices, new equipment, new diseases we're learning about, they're generally at the forefront helping provide that great care and expertise. So really jack of all trades, Jack Jill of all trades, as we like to say. I have the opportunity, I serve as a multi-site leader for NPDs, so I have the opportunity to oversee various NPDs and programs within a health system, and that's also segued into some of my role as a board of directors for ANPD.
Excellent.
And for me, my current role is Director of Education for ANPD, so primarily looking at all the products and services and programs that we have to provide continuing education to nursing professional development practitioners who are primarily our members. However, I've served in a variety of roles before that, unit educator, residency coordinator, residency director, nursing professional development department director, and then led my way up to ANPD, which now I have the capacity to reach a national audience. It's an international audience, actually. We have a few international members, and so it's extremely humbling and rewarding to be able to connect with similar folks, who have the same struggles and challenges and reward systems that you have, across the nation and internationally.
It's interesting you say that you say the same struggles and such. And I was thinking, when I think of professional development nurse educators that I've come across, the word I always come back to is passionate. That these are people who really truly want to be in there helping others learn and become knowledgeable. And I love the passion that was generated at the convention, and I really hope to come back someday and recapture some more of that from those passionate individuals. And so at the convention, one of the things that I shared with the audience was this idea of narrative nursing, and I wanted to be able to do a quick narrative bit of work today, like we did at the conference, but with both of you, by asking a question that is the same question that I pose to my pre-meds at the beginning of every semester. And that is to describe an experience where someone was there for you, or an experience where you were there for someone else who is suffering. And I'm going into this kind of raw here, so I would love to hear both of your stories, if you're comfortable sharing, whether this is from a professional standpoint or if this is in a personal standpoint, that simple idea of compassionate presence. Either of you want to volunteer to go first?
Sure, this is Stephanie. I can get us started, then toss it to Naomi. So I wanted to focus in on a time because we did know, spoiler, that you were going to ask us this question. So that gave us a little good preparation. But I was thinking about a time when I was at the bedside, so in a clinical nurse setting, and I was actually giving a patient, I was getting hot tea for her, and our hot water dispenser machine was abnormally hot, and the door came and hit my arm that was holding this hot tea, and it went all through my scrub shirt, my undershirt, and I had really severe second-degree burns all over my arm. So thank goodness that tea didn't go to the patient because it would have been way, way too hot. And I was actually unable to work in the ICU setting. I also have a critical care setting for about 6 weeks while this burn healed because it would have been too risky to be in the patient care setting with such a severe kind of large-scale arm burn. I was totally fine, so I don't want anybody to feel like I was under any extreme stress, but it was definitely a gap in time where I didn't know what to do and how to kind of keep myself occupied because I still could definitely work, but just in not the patient care setting. And one of my colleagues and actually the director of NPD or nursing professional development at a former organization pulled me aside. She knew I had this incident at work and needed some kind of light duty preoccupied work, and she really opened the door for me to all things ANPD and NPD. I always thought like, wow, the people that are doing education are so cool, but I could never do that. Like that seems so far away. I have to have a million years of experience and so many additional degrees. And she really saw something in me. And I don't think if it wouldn't have been for that hot tea and that arm burn, I don't think I would have gotten here in the same state that I did. So I had the opportunity to work hand by hand, really be kind of her right man person during that 6-month period or 6-week period rather. And ultimately then she hired me in for a part-time education NPD type of role, and when she went on to do something within the organization on a larger scale, I was actually identified as her successor. So that was something that helped me very kind of by happenstance and hot water, a door that slammed too quickly, but was really so blessed that she took me under her wing and helped me see something that at the time I really didn't even know was in my horizons and that I had the opportunity to captivate. So wanted to share and hope that speaks a little bit to what you were asking, Marcus.
It does, and it's seeing something in somebody else and helping them believe in themselves, even whenever they may feel they're not qualified, they're not quote unquote good enough. That's really sitting with someone authentically in relationship to be able to notice those things and react to those, and then of course react accordingly to help you. So from accidents, from traumas, there is goodness born, and I think that's redemption that most all of us are looking for. We're looking to take bad experiences and turn them into something good, and I'm glad that your experience brought you into this realm of nursing, and I'm glad to know you now. So thank you for that.
Thanks for letting us share.
Sure. Naomi, do you have a narrative you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So I thought about this, and I wanted to kind of pay homage to some of the unsung hero-ness of NPD practitioners that I believe my share will resonate with some roles or experiences that people have had. So 2 roles ago, I was an RN residency program director. And an RN residency program really serves to kind of bridge the gap between academia and the clinical setting for new graduate nurses. So once they go from learning everything in school, and then all of a sudden they have patients that, are really theirs, they kind of have to learn quick, and it incorporates a lot more components than what's on tests. And so often, and this was during the pandemic as well, the attrition rate of the residency programs was a challenge. Nurses were already stressed with working their hours, and it was hard for them to stay engaged and passionate and doing what they would describe as, I guess, extracurricular activities, both from the organizational level and the nursing level. And so NPD practitioners were really challenged at this time, and I certainly was, on keeping folks engaged. And so there was this one resident that really stands out, that she just was having some personal challenges, unrelated to work, but also adjustments and challenges, during the pandemic, taking care of the patients. And I just really spent a lot of time being her cheerleader, being there to advocate for her, being there to tell her she is good enough, being there to tell her that, even if at some point she doesn't want to do this anymore, that's okay too, but that I believed in her. And so she originally wanted to quit the program. She ended up completing the program and graduating with her cohort. It was a 12-month program. She ended up pursuing her master's degree, which she'd keep me posted via Instagram. And now she's almost complete with her nurse practitioner degree. So I don't think that I am a huge player in her success, but I know that we stand, behind a lot of nurses to push them when they don't believe in themselves or when they are lacking a little bit of confidence that they need. And specifically things like trauma and the pandemic really brought that out a lot in the staff nurses, specifically new nurses. So that's a time that I think about where I try to help someone else aside from myself in my role.
What a strange time we lived through, right? And all those nurses coming into the field and into hospital work right at the time things are going so sideways in America. My stepdaughter is an ER nurse and stepped in right about that same time, maybe a year before the pandemic started. And tip of the hat to all of you young nurses who are, I don't want to say baby nurses, but still kind of several years in nurses that came in and stuck it out through the pandemic to see that there is a world beyond COVID. There is a world beyond COVID. So thank you both for sharing that. And before we move into our second segment where you guys get to ask me questions, we wanted to announce that to help celebrate NPD Week, we here at the I'm Here movement, we're giving away a 30-minute narrative nursing workshop, a virtual workshop for one nurse professional development person and 19 of your closest colleagues and friends. This is going to be a very casual evening where we spend about 30 minutes. So grab a beverage of your choice, grab a pint of whatever ice cream you love or cookies you love, and we're going to sit down and just share some stories and do a couple of narrative nursing practices to try to keep us centered in the sacred work that you do every day. And so if you want to enter this contest, please go to marcusengel.com/ANPD. That's Association of Nursing Professional Development. marcusengel.com/ANPD. You'll put your name in the basket and we'll select one lucky winner. And we'll let you all announce that through your means on ANPD social media, and we'll look forward to spending an evening sharing some stories and listening to some stories and staying connected to the stories that really speak to the heart of this work.
Thank you so much. I think that's a wonderful gift for our community. I mean, certainly at the convention, everybody was wowed, and online, and we were actually having to cut them short for the time frame. So anyone who wins will certainly benefit from this. Thank you, Marcus.
Sure. And I feel like this is not rocket surgery, right? This is just giving the invitation to people to share. And when we are present, when we are actively listening to the stories of others, when we all know that when we feel heard and seen, then it immediately embraces us in another level of compassion. And I hope that that's what we're going to be able to encompass in this giveaway workshop too for narrative nursing. So again, go to marcusengel.com/ANPD to register, and hopefully you will get to share a half an hour with me and 19 of your closest compatriots and colleagues. So, do you guys have any questions for me before we're moving on into the rest of the podcast?
No,
No, I think we're just ready to ask you some questions too, if we may.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. I feel like it's kind of unbalanced. I get to ask you all these questions and tell stories, but share with me. I'd love to be able to tell you anything that you'd like to know.
All right, so I'll start us off, Marcus. So, can you give us some general guidance for the nursing professional development practitioners listening on how they can best incorporate some narrative principles into daily practice? Whether that's teaching classes or connecting one-on-one, like you heard Naomi talk about with newer nurses. But what are some of those kind of key principles you'd recommend?
So I think we know that unfortunately we know that there's a high rate of compassion fatigue and burnout. We know that stress goes along with the job. And one of the ways that I feel like narrative can be utilized to help keep us grounded is by doing just a couple of simple exercises every day. And now this isn't going to solve everything, but why do people get compassion fatigue? Why do people get burnt out? And part of it is the reason they feel like they're not making a difference anymore, right? We feel like I'm exhausted and I'm just not making a difference. I'm spinning my wheels, so to speak. So what I encourage nurses to do is at the end of every shift, just take down a quick note or two. Number one, think about that shift. Take a moment to reflect on that shift, whether it's an 8 or 12 or dare I say a 14-hour with overtime. Take a moment to reflect on that shift and simply write down, maybe it's on your phone, just in your notes app, write down the best thing that happened on that shift. And then secondly, write down something that happened on that shift that if it would happen tomorrow, you would do it differently. So one thing, what was the best thing that happened on this shift? I got to work with a patient who was severely dehydrated and I got to help her feel better because I did XYZ. Okay, that's a good thing. And then what's something that you would do differently tomorrow? Well, that same patient was not wanting to drink and I may have said something that would have been sounded a little judgmental, and I would not want to sound judgmental in my work. I never want to do that. So what's one thing that went well, and what's one thing that you would change if it happened again tomorrow? And hopefully pretty soon you see yourself not only having a whole bunch of things that you've done right, but a whole bunch of things that you've learned from too. And when we take time to reflect on those things that we're doing right and all the things that we're learning, I feel like that helps us stay engaged with the work our hands and minds and eyes and hands and feet are all doing. So that's one of my narrative suggestions for nurses.
Thank you. I love it. And it's easy. It's only 2 questions, so you didn't give us too much homework or post-shift work. Yeah. And love that it can be done even, walking out to your car or leaving the unit or hospital or your role. So thanks so much for giving us some good pearls to tap into.
Sure.
One of the things I think about is I used to write it on Post-its, but now I write everything in the notes in my phone. So certainly you can even voice dictate your thoughts after a shift. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a staff nurse or an NPD practitioner, what were the positives and what would you do different if there was a stressor? So Thank you. That's very helpful.
A lot of times I will, when I'm in the car, I'll send text to myself via voice dictation, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm getting a text, but it's really just me with reminders. But then you can hear it, too, from the automated response. So just different ways to kind of utilize time, but also be mindful.
Yeah.
And the biggest question is, do you reply to yourself?
Sometimes. Give myself a thumbs up, maybe.
Right. Good job today.
I write notes at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep, and then I'm like, who wrote this note? Into my phone. I don't remember. But it's always a really good idea, or it resonates with me, but I'm like, when did I write this? So my question is, thinking about our roles as NPD practitioners, and I'm just going to name a few to just paint the picture. learning facilitator, change agent, mentor, leader. Those are some of them. Hearing those roles, what, aside from the two questions, what advice would you have for NPDs who are professionally developing, both new nurses and seasoned nurses, who are struggling with burnout?
Well, I'd almost even go back to the first exercise again, and it's to write about those ones that are winning, right? Those times when people really get it. Remember to remember, right? Remember to remember, because oftentimes we get off of a shift, we've worked with somebody, or we worked with a whole group of somebodies in a workshop setting, and we got positive feedback, but we said, I'll remember that later, and then we don't, right? Come on, all of our short-term memories in the wake of the pandemic seem like they're suffering. And so one of the things that has been suggested is this idea of keeping a sunshine folder. And maybe that's instead of a note on your phone, but just keeping a folder full of any kind of news clippings or commendations or awards that you've received. And what I want to make sure that people put in there are their own stories from the times that they have been just absolutely in the flow with what the job is, right? And artists and writers and musicians talk about getting in the flow and getting in the groove. And I think we feel that across the professions. And whenever you feel like you're in the groove, write about that. And what did that actually feel like? What did those emotions feel like? What was the response of the people that you were training? What was the look on their face? What was the tone in their voice? What was the energy of the room like? And when we can tune into those times, when we actually take time to reflect, it slows our thinking down a little bit, and it also helps us appreciate those moments that we get to do this incredible work. So slow down, narrate your stories, write your stories, and keep a folder of these stories, because to go back and look at those kind of things whenever you are having a tough day, because those tough days will always come, just have some kind of physical reminder out there of the difference that you're making every day.
That was great. I love that. I love the idea of a sunshine folder. We have a sunshine club within our department that tries to do some of those things, but more on a departmental level, more of a global approach. So raising different awarenesses and having fun events and different activities. And Naomi, they're even stealing your bingo singo, which is something Naomi loves to talk about. But she
love the bingo singo.
Highlight of her NPD career. But
clearly
she led a really rousing, really engaged bingo singo event when we had our Aspire convention earlier this year. So just really savoring those great things and trying to spread that out to others too.
Marcus, you're going to have to come to that with James next time. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the bingo singo thing.
Basically plays songs, and the songs are on some kind of game card, and if you recognize the songs, then you can get bingo and win.
Gotcha.
Turned into some dance-offs, which you clearly look like an amazing dancer, I'm just saying. So I think that
looks are deceiving. Looks are deceiving, but I spent a lot of time listening to music over my lifetime, so I'm probably pretty good at this bingo singo game that you guys have created.
A bona fide bingo singo star. So he may need to reconnect.
This was right. One of the most embarrassing moments in my NPD career, but nevertheless, I think it was a hit. It went off at a hit,
It was.
Clearly, it's being copied across, acute care settings. So,
hey, imitation is the best.
Whatever we do to network and bond, is what's important, right?
And that's the whole energy of the Aspire convention to me, was fun and everybody passionate about being there. It really left me on a high compared to a lot of times going to conferences. It's a big kind of there's so many people you don't know who to network with, and it just, you all were just in the pocket, to use a musical term. You all were in the pocket on the conference, and it's a wonderful event. If anybody is thinking about going to that conference, definitely check it out.
Yeah, awesome. If I can take the opportunity to share an upcoming event that we're having. We recognize that it's very difficult and challenging for some folks to come to an in-person conference. It means taking time away from your personal responsibilities and work. Over the course of a few days might be challenging for some. So what we've done is we've come up with a virtual symposium. It's actually going to be on November 7th, and it's an online education event for NPD practitioners featuring both live and on-demand sessions and poster presentations. So what we're trying to do is capture the essence of an energy and positivity of what we had at Aspire and transfer it virtually. So if anyone's interested, check out www.anpd.org, click on the events tab, and then click on the virtual symposium to view the speakers, content, and more information. So November 7th.
November 7th. Excellent. Sounds like a good time, good information. And so in the time we have left, do you guys have any closing remarks? Anything else you'd like to promote? Because we'd love to be able to keep on celebrating NPD week as long as we can.
I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all the NPD practitioners out there listening, or people who are listening that know an NPD practitioner or are thinking about going into this specialty. When I first became a nurse, I actually did not instantaneously naturally gravitate towards NPD. I thought I'd go into a different specialty, and by circumstance I ended up here, and I am incredibly grateful, and it is so rewarding, and I get to help the nurses who help the patients, and that reach is extremely far. So thank you to everyone. I hope you celebrate and think of all the positive impacts that you have on the people around you, and happy NPD week.
Well, thank you both so much, to Naomi Fox and to Stephanie Zidek, for being with me. Again, happy Nursing Professional Development Week. Want to thank you both for being with me and sharing such great information. Also want to remind everybody to visit marcusengel.com/ANPD to enter the contest for the Narrative Nursing virtual session. You and 19 of your closest colleagues can have an experience like we had in Atlanta, and just want to be able to put some good stuff out there in the world to create more compassion and courage. So thank you, Naomi and Stephanie, for being with me, and thank you, listeners, for being on this episode of Compassion and Courage, Conversations in Healthcare. I'm Marcus Engel, and this is the podcast where I teach compassionate communication, provide perspective, and inspire resilience. For keynote speaking, inquiries, compassion training, or patient experience consulting, please visit marcusengel.com. Thank you so much.